At long last, Justin Gainey has another vitally important key piece to this NC State basketball roster.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. It's been a very busy last couple days. We are back in the saddle here on Wednesday with plenty to talk about. Going back to last week, we had hoped that the public commitment of Shah was going to be before we recorded our Friday episode. No such luck. He commits after we had already recorded later on Thursday evening. But we will start our episode here on Wednesday with that news. Shah, the JUCO center, whether he's 6'10" or 6'11", depends on who you ask, is committed to the NC State Wolfpack, and that is a very important piece, a very important get, especially at this stage of the summer. We've talked at extensive lengths about what the roster still needs at this stage of the game, the depth part of the whole equation, what you need to feel good about your front court going into the season, and you were looking for ultimately one to maybe two rotational type guys. Well, Shah it seems to be the definition of a rotational type guy. So coming up from the JUCO level, he will join the Wolfpack this year. Kenton, how significant is this of an addition is this for Justin Gainey?
I would say it's an extremely relevant addition because this is what we talked about. This is what we continually said was needed to finish out this roster. We weren't saying, hey, we need another ball handler. We need another shot maker. We need another, we need another guy who can create on his own. We were saying all along for the past 3 weeks-ish, all right, let's get us some backup bigs. Let's get us some bigs that we feel like are capable of handling real ACC minutes, real ACC basketball. And I feel like Shah finishes that off for you. So that's a very, very monumentous deal there. When everybody was saying, oh, we just keep getting guards, more guards, the ability to come down with a Shah here is a big piece of that puzzle. So, this is a very, very exciting moment in closing a player that is, however tall he is, we know that he's long, we know that he's got bounce, we know that he's got good enough athleticism and timing to be impactful to a positive degree on this team. And again, we don't want to rely on, hey, Evans, don't get hurt, never get in foul trouble. That's our plan in the front court. That's what we're going to do. Hey, Yalaho, you need to somehow play 3 inches bigger and 40 pounds heavier than you are. That's our plan. That's a terrible plan. To quote Voldemort, at that point, you're banking on hope. Your plan is hope, and hope is a bad plan. So to get Shah further emphasizes the things that Justin Gainey talked about with, hey, we need more size. We need to be a bigger team than we have been in recent history because, Grayson, you and I know this. Going back multiple coaches, we little team. We just time and time again, we just can't rebound. We've had Ken's keys for the past couple of years where it's don't get killed on the boards. You could lose the board battle, just keep it close. Can you imagine us saying something like that for football? Hey, they're so much bigger than you up front. Don't get killed in the running game. Only let them rush for 50 to 75 more yards than you. We would feel like we were losing our minds. So in the rebounding battle, and with that size that we've lacked for so long, getting a guy like Shah, adding him into the mix, adding some quality, size, and depth in that front court, it means something.
Absolutely. And, you account Shah leveling up from the JUCO level where, quick refresher, he played for the Shelton State Bucks this last year. He averaged 9.4 points, 7.8 rebounds, 55% at the foul line. Obviously not a strength there, but 65% field goal percentage overall. He's going to convert right around the rim. You want easy shot selection, high percentage shots for Shah, aka layups, dunks, putbacks, the whole 9 yards. But what Kenton said about the physicality of Shah, that to me is the clear-cut selling point here, because I've made the analogy before that we're kind of looking for like a Dennis Rodman type of player. Like, he's not going to light it up on the scoreboard, but you need a big physical body that can impact both shots on the defensive end and rebound to close out possessions. What Shah Hall gives you in both of those aspects, it can't be understated because, yes, right, Kyle Evans was the leading shot blocker in the country last year. That part is true. We've also been very consistent on the fact that he cannot do it alone. And so Shah Hall provides a very big need for this roster, of course. And, a couple weeks back, you add Robert Jurkovic from overseas. He's another big body guy, but he has a little bit more flexibility in what he can play. He can shoot it from the outside a little bit shiftier of a player, despite the big body that he has as well. But Shah Hall is the bruiser type, and we desperately needed a bruiser type. So he fits a very specific need. And I can't wait to see what he actually does bring to the table. But that kind of poses another question here for you, Kenton. What role do you see for Shah Hall? Like, how many minutes per se? Do you see him becoming a very high impact player? What are your thoughts on that end?
If I had to take a guess, I would say anywhere from 8 to 12 a night. I would say 8 to 12 a night is about the sweet spot. Okay. Maybe you go up to 14 if he's really positively impactful. But, I see this as the rim runner that we talked about. I see this as a guy that, hey, set that pick, get downhill. I see this as the guy, somebody's messing with Ed Mead. Go lay down the law a little bit, that type of guy. That's what I see here, because he seems to have that personality more so than any of the other players on the roster so far. And I'm a Detroit basketball guy, you know what I mean? As a guy who's watched way too much ACC basketball, congratulations to the Pistons on getting the Oakary. What a pick. But I know that, again, if you're going to be a really good team, you need to be physical. You need to have that enforcer. You need to have that guy that can give you some rim protection and that girth and tonnage down low. Hey, we ain't moving. This is my space right here under the rim. You're going to have to root me up out of here. Oh, you can't do it. The ball's already in my possession. And I see him as that type of guy in a reserve role, right? I see him as what we thought that we were going to get from Abube last year. I see him as a guy that, if I had to compare it to a player that we've had here in recent history, I struggle to come up with one that was off the bench and kind of very impactful in the front court. But I would say maybe early stage Manny Bates, when it was him and BJ Anya. I believe there was some overlap where they were on campus together, and he was the second guy in. And your job, protect the rim a little bit, run to the rim, and finish there. And that's pretty much it. You're not going to be the guy we draw plays for. You're not going to be the guy that the offense runs through you. But in the limited minutes that you get, be a net positive, protect the rim. You know what? You know who I just thought of, who just came to mind, that if he could be like this guy with a Gucci belt, I'd be extremely happy. What Ebenezer Dewana was. If he could be that with a Gucci belt, that is the ultimate win for me. A reserve big that comes in. Because if you think about what Ebenezer Dewana was, for the most part, he was a net positive in limited spurts. Now, if you gave Ebenezer Dewana starter minutes, now you're in trouble. Now something has gone wrong here. But in those limited spurts, he had his moments where he could be good. Now, if Shah can do that consistently, if we can get that on a consistent basis, come in, be a net positive on a consistent basis, I really think, hey, we've really got something special on our hands, and this team could be taken to another level by that.
Ebenezer Dewana with a Gucci belt. I love that. No, it's an interesting analogy to make because you know it's so easy to draw comparisons, and you think about the JUCO level for NC State and the players they've acquired in that fashion somewhat recently. Like Mo Diarra, he didn't come straight from JUCO, but he came he came from Mizzou, but he was at the JUCO level before that. Another name to know is DJ Funderburk. DJ Funderburk was at the JUCO level when NC State picked him up way back when. I think that was kind of the overlap. It was Funderburk was like 17 and 18, and then that bled into Manny Bates and Ebenezer Dewana. So there's, a lot of bigs that kind of you hoped you'd get more from in recent NC State history. But I think the comparison for Shah Hall there is, you mentioned Scotty Abube. I want Shah Hall to be a more functional version of Scotty Abube because Abube was super physical, one of the biggest guys on the floor, one of the most explosive athletes on the floor, but he couldn't just quite control himself. He was averaging basically 4 fouls in 8 minutes, and it's just not sustainable, especially for what we needed in terms of the front court there. So I think Shah Hall will be a bit more polished per se than Scotty Abube was. And like I said, you're not asking for the guy to come in and be, Wembanyama by any means. You just, any, offense you can get in limited pockets, that feels like a bonus to me. But defensively, we need rim protection and rebounding. That might be like the number one attribute I'm looking for Shah Hall to give us. So the physical build of Shah Hall, 6'10", 6'11", right around 240 pounds, just what the doctor ordered for Justin Gainey in this roster. We will see if they add any more roster spots. I believe they do have 2 more available if they choose to use them, but it cannot be overstated how important Shah Hall was to round out this roster. Anytime you have Arkansas and John Calipari in the mix, it gets a little dicey at times, but Justin Gainey was able to land Shah Hall here, much needed addition, and now we go. Now this team will get fully into summer workouts, which they've already started, of course. More of the team kind of trickles onto campus. I saw Kyle Evans is now on campus as well. Now they kind of mesh during the summer. They prepare for the fall, and this is where the team chemistry and the program will continue to build up from this point. But cannot be overstated how important Shah Hall is to add into this roster, especially this late in the game. I mean, late June is crazy late to be making kind of last-minute additions to a roster here. But Shah Hall is the latest addition, much needed. Welcome to the Wolfpack. Coming up next, sticking on the topic of NC State basketball, there's been a cancellation with the VCU Rams canceling the other half of the home and home. What's all this about? More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our Wednesday sponsor is Odoo. If I can update my read. Oh, come on now. One second. There we go. Running a business. Where to go? Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them will communicate with one another. That is where Odoo comes into play. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing the software. The best organizations know that success isn't about just the talent. It's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's also true in sports, just like it is in business. For example, you can compare this to the way Justin Gainey has maybe exercised a lot of patience with both Paul McNeil and now adding Shah Hall into the roster. There's clearly a plan that the staff had in place. They would not oversell or get reactionary to other roster moves around the country. They played their blueprint. They knew what they wanted to add to this roster. Patience was rewarded, and now they have effectively the entire rotation. Great organizations win because operations, well, they matter. That is why you should get involved with Odoo. Try for free at odoo.com/lockedon. That's Odoo, ODOO.com, odoo.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, odoo.com/lockedon. All right, middle portion of our Wednesday show. Yesterday, on Tuesday, the announcement came through that NC State basketball would be canceling the second leg of a home-and-home with the VCU Rams. Obviously, this past season in Raleigh, VCU made the trip down to see us inside the Lenovo Center. It was, I believe, my memory serves correctly, a 6-point win for the NC State Wolfpack. And it was anticipated that NC State would be going up to the Siegel Center, which has kind of become like hallowed ground in terms of mid-major basketball. And VCU, they win a lot of their games at home. They created one heck of a home environment, especially at the A10 level. But VCU was supposed to be hosting NC State this coming fall until Tuesday. It was announced that will be no more. NC State has backed out of the other half of that agreement. They are paying VCU, I believe it is $190,000 to get out of that agreement. Before I say any more, Kenton, your thoughts on the cancellation with VCU?
Wow, well, Virginia School has a contract. Look at what happens. Look at how amazingly smooth things go. But no, in all seriousness, VCU, shout out to those guys. I love the fact that they did schedule for a home and home here. I'm very intrigued to see what the move is to replace this game, right? That's the next thing up for me. What are you going to replace this game with? Because I know that you don't just drop a VCU to schedule the Island of Misfit Toys Community College. I don't take Justin Gainey to be that type of guy. You know, we've had different coaches over the years, some of which feasted off of the Homestead School for the differently abled, where they were like, hey, this team ain't won a basketball game in 10 years. So what? We're going to pay them and beat the brakes off them. Justin Gainey doesn't seem like that type of guy. And so I'm intrigued to see what the follow-up here is, because VCU is a reputable team. That is a team that, I mean, an away win at VCU, at worst, you're looking at what? A lower quad 2 win most years? Like that's and that's saying that's a down year for VCU. On average, I would probably say you're looking at either higher quad 2 or quad 1 with a win at VCU potentially. So, you know, this is a situation that I would say, Justin Gainey, I'm rocking with you. I believe in you. I'm intrigued to see what the follow-up to this is, because if it is a situation where you schedule the Island of Misfit Toys University, I'm looking at you. Why you doing that? What's going on? But the tea leaves, you know, Grayson and I keep our ear to the street like we trying to talk to the pavement, and the pavement has been telling us some rather interesting things.
There is a bit more to this story. I'll touch on that in just a second, but my reaction to this initially was disappointment. I wanted to play on the road at VCU because I think basically everything that Kenton just outlined, NC State basketball for a long time outside of this past season, they have been very, I would say, lackadaisical in their non-conference scheduling. Like, sure, every so often you have the Big Ten ACC Challenge or the ACC SEC Challenge, and that's, you know, usually a good matchup year in and year out. And you typically have like one-ish other marquee game in the non-conference. And then basically, if you do play a Thanksgiving week tournament, you do. If you don't, you don't. Outside of that, though, we've kind of really made our hay off of like the Mount Olives of the world, which I don't even think that's D1, but like we'll say UNC Asheville, for example, or playing like, I don't even know, like Liberty at times. I'm not making good examples, but you understand what I'm saying. Like lower level, like, okay, here's a good one for you. I think it was University of Maryland Eastern Shore. What are we doing? We have no business playing one of the worst programs in D1 collegiate basketball inside of our schedule. And so for a long time, that's kind of been the vibes of the non-conference schedule. Here's a quick disclaimer. I'm about to give credit to Voldemort. What he did last year in crafting the non-conference schedule was a step in the right direction. He wanted a more challenging non-conference schedule. That is where NC State should angle this. And to Kenton's point again, I do think that is where Justin Gainey will go with this. I think he wants to challenge his bunch. The rest of the non-conference schedule outside of the one we're talking about here, it does seem pretty challenging. I mean, you have a neutral site game with Tennessee out in Nashville. That's going to be a hostile environment because it's only 3 hours away from Knoxville. So I'd love to see that. We're still scheduled as of now to play the other half of that neutral site, I guess home and home, if you want to call it that, with Ole Miss. It's another SEC team that you got to play. And this one, I would say, is maybe around like the third or fourth most important non-conference game that we had. So for this to be canceled, and I do think it was, again, I'll credit Kenton for a fourth time, this was probably going to be a quad 1 game, in which those are extremely valuable for your postseason resume. And so you could have certainly used that to your advantage as well. So to cancel that, to me, it's disappointing because I think if I'm Justin Gainey, I want to put my team in difficult road environments early on. And I want to credit VCU because VCU is a great basketball program. They are. I mean, they just beat the Dirty Feet in this past iteration of March Madness. And they're basically consistently, it seems like they're always around March Madness. If they're, you know, they barely make it or they barely miss it, they're always right there in the mix. That's a mark of a great mid-major program. So they're a strong program. And I've seen a lot of them very upset that we canceled. I certainly understand why. And like I said, I'm disappointed myself. So the other half of this conversation is there is some rumors flying around that perhaps this is being canceled so NC State can get another matchup with those that we call the Dirty Feet. Now, supposedly, allegedly, this second matchup with Dirty Feet would be a neutral site game, and it would also be a non-conference game, seeing that we only play Carolina once this season in the ACC. It is a road game over there in Dirty Foot land. So the idea that a second matchup here would be both neutral site and non-conference, Kenton, what are your thoughts on potentially that being the case?
I mean, I'm very intrigued by that. Anytime you get an opportunity to beat the Dirty Foot Club, I'm excited. I'm fired up about that. I'm super fired up about it. I'm more intrigued by what is the neutral site, right? Like, what is the neutral site for teams that are, in essence, 30 minutes apart? Is it having a game that be an outdoor game in the deep app or something like that? Like, well, what are we?
That'd be kind of sick.
What are we actually doing here by making this neutral site? And granted, I understand why it has to be neutral site. I understand the idea of if you play that one team or the others, it's the conference gets involved and all that type of stuff. I get that. But it is one of those things that's just like bureaucracy has once again left us to create these weird Jenga-like situations where you got to work all these pieces to be in perfect order in order to find where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. This is going to sound like a hater take. I don't know if I love this. Now, on one hand, I do want to play them twice. And I think it's a shame that, adding in new programs to the ACC, it's kind of messed up tradition in that sense. Like all of a sudden we don't play them home and away every year like we're supposed to. And now you have to kind of get creative and find ways to find a way to play them twice. But if this is a neutral site game, and like Kenton said, what does that even really mean? And my initial reaction would probably say, like, does that mean like Greensboro? Does that mean Charlotte? I don't know. Maybe one of the two. If that's the case, I have a slight concern that would ultimately just turn into, a second road game, if you get what I'm saying, against the Dirty Feet. And if that is how that shakes out, I don't know if that's a benefit to NC State. Like, yeah, you should want to play your rival twice every year. That's been such a pastime and for all of us in the state of North Carolina. So it's important for a lot of folks, and I certainly understand that. But is it worth it if you're putting NC State in basically a non-advantageous scenario, not once but twice? I don't know if maybe the juice is worth the squeeze. Like, if you're looking at resume purposes, deleting VCU and adding the Dirty Feet, that's kind of a wash, because I'd imagine the Dirty Feet neutral site, it's still going to be a quad one, especially, I guess we'll see. I would anticipate that would be quad one, at absolute worst, a quad two. So that's kind of a wash in terms of resume there. But in terms of the financials of this, does it really help NC State that much to play a neutral site game against them? I don't know. I guess that would maybe depend on how the crowd shakes out in that fashion. But I have some hesitations, Kenton. If this does turn out to be Greensboro, I mean, is it like 75% blue inside the Greensboro Coliseum? I would hate to see that. I certainly would. And I think NC State fans would certainly show up. We always do, but I don't know. I have a lot of pause about this being a neutral site scenario. But again, like I get the creativity factor to pull this off, to make the fan bases happy and see each other twice. You got to think outside the box, and maybe this is what that would require. But I don't know. I think if you're going to delete VCU, why does it have to be VCU? Like, couldn't you delete? Like, okay, let's say hypothetically we are supposed to play UNC Asheville. Get rid of that one. I'd much rather play the Dirty Feet and VCU. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't really gain much by playing UNC Asheville, with all due respect. But we've seen this song and dance before. When we play a team that's in the low 200s in terms of the net, or maybe even the 300s, it kind of serves us no benefit. I mean, sure, it's a tune-up for the rest of our roster, or not roster, but schedule. But in terms of resume, it almost does more harm than good. So I would rather keep VCU on the schedule and play the Dirty Feet in a neutral site or whatever. I want a tougher schedule. I don't want an easier schedule. I'd much rather figure out what I have in the month of December, or as opposed to get to January and think stuff is sweet, and then you find out the hard way that stuff is in fact not sweet. So we'll see how this shakes out.
My brother, my co-host in Christ, I'm sorry. I could not disagree with you more.
That's fine. I think this will be a decisive conversation for a lot of folks. When
it comes to my biggest rivals, when it comes to anybody who considers themselves my rivals, even those that are not my rival, if you call yourself my rival, well, clearly you won't smoke, so I'm finna bring a barbecue. I don't care if we're playing in Carter Finley, if we're playing in Carter Finley West, if we're playing in the Bojangles parking lot, if we're playing in Ford Field, if we're playing outside of my apartment complex. If I got a chance to beat my biggest rivals, to beat people who consider themselves my rival, my equal, oh, come on. You want the smoke, we're going to bring more vape pens than a bunch of 19-year-olds who still go to high school football games. You understand me? I'm telling you right now, I want it. I want it at all times. So, yes, I do not want to cancel out a good team to bring in this rivalry. I agree with you there. I do agree with you that, hey, if you're going to get rid of somebody, get rid of one of your lesser opponents and bring this game in. But if this game is what's on the docket, I don't care who you got to move or how you got to move them. I'm foaming at the mouth. And this ain't just about the Dirty Foot Club because, anybody who knows me, going back to my high school days, if you tell me the Crusaders are on the line, if you tell me the Jungleers, if you tell me the Phoenix are on the line, come on, let's do it. I don't care where we getting it in at. I don't care if we getting it in a little league park. I don't care if we getting it in. I don't care. Line it up, put the ball down, okay? And in this instance, line it up, tip the ball off, because I want to play you wherever you want to play me. I don't care if the crowd is 75% for you. I don't care if they're 100% for you. There's nothing better, nothing sweeter than going into what starts off as a ruckus environment and everybody's so loud, playing one of those Catholic League schools and their student sections doing that, oh, I believe that we will win, chant. And then by the middle of the second quarter, they're already hitting the, that's all right, that's okay, you're going to pump our gas someday. And then after halftime, they're filing out. Oh, what happened? Where'd you go? Come pick up your boy. What happened to your mans? That's what I want to see. That's what I live for. Don't get me wrong. A win against VCU would be valuable. And by the way, you're right. VCU fans, y'all have every right to be pissed off about this. I will give you, all the latitude in the world. You should be pissed off about it. But when it comes to my rivals and another chance to beat them, that's the stuff even after I go back into the arms of the Lord, even after I get to see my granny and my mama again up in the sky, I'm still going to want one more opportunity. If they say, oh, you come down to do just 2 things, just 2-3 things, obviously talk to my little ones if they still here. Talk to my old lady if she's still here. But the third thing, give me one game against the rival. Give me one. Give me one rep of board drill against somebody that wore that dirty foot on the side of their helmet. That one of those bums from East Lafayette. One of those losers from Dirty 30. One of those losers from McNichols. Give me one more shot.
From a pure competitive aspect, I'm with you. Like, I want to clarify before I get clipped for any reason. I'm not afraid of the smoke. I want the smoke. I want to play the Dirty Feet twice every single year, to your point, no matter where it is. I want to play them. I just hate that you're canceling VCU to then put NC State in basically another road crowd, which is the Dirty Feet crowd. I don't like that aspect of it, but I want to play them. Absolutely. I'm not afraid of them. Not now, not ever. I don't care who they got on the roster, who we have on our roster. I want to line it up and tip that thing off or put the ball down in terms of the gridiron. I'm not afraid of them, but I think there was a better way we could have configured this. But the best way you could configure this, I already saw David Johnson in the chat, bring back the Big Four. What is taking so long that we can't figure out how to play Wake, Duke, Dirty Feet, and NC State in a weekend tournament? It can absolutely be done. The whole state would lose their minds over how much they love it and cherish it and appreciate the fact that it might come back. That is where this should go, because that covers your non-conference angle. If you only play them once, well, you can see them in the Big Four Challenge. Perfect way to solve that. And I think hopefully, maybe like as soon as next year, maybe don't hold your breath, but I hope that can get resolved, because this, in my mind, I agree with David, that is what they should do. Now, moving forward to close out our Friday show, the NCAA has announced they are moving forward and approving the 5-in-5 eligibility rule. We'll talk more about that after another quick word from our sponsors. All right, last couple minutes of our Wednesday show. The NCAA Division I cabinet has unanimously voted to approve the age-based eligibility model. That is the 5-in-5 model. And so what that means is the age-based model calls for an athlete's eligibility clock upon initial full-time enrollment in college or at the beginning of the academic year following their 19th birthday, whichever occurs first. This is a quote from On3. The cabinet's decision is not final, of course, until the meeting concludes on Wednesday, which is today. So another thing to consider here, and it was kind of wondered about a couple weeks ago on if the current seniors that are kind of in no man's land, if they'd be grandfathered in. That answer is still no. So this would be effective for basically incoming freshmen. The current seniors right now, they're still eligible, so we're not losing anybody off the roster in terms of that aspect, but this will be effective basically starting this summer. So let's say, for example, CJ Bailey, we'll talk football. CJ Bailey now has another year of eligibility that he can use. He's been here. This will be his third year with us. He has the opportunity now to play here for 5 years, all hypothetical. So the current guys that are not on their way out already, they are gifted now with another year of eligibility in terms of this academic clock, which they're ushering in. Kenton, now that this is being passed, is this the correct decision?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with this decision. I've had enough of 25, 26-year-olds playing against 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
I've had enough. And people are saying, well, those 18 or those 25, 26-year-olds aren't the cream of the crop, 25, 26-year-olds. Sure. But again, let's go and understand that these are still Division I athletes. These are still guys who their entire lives have been all about training, all about getting better at whatever their chosen sport or craft is. And they've got a 4 to 5 to 6 year advantage over some of their competition. How many times have we seen guys that go into the draft that were like dominant in college their senior year or so, and everybody's like, oh man, I thought they were going to be really good. What happened? And you just do the math on it, and you're like, oh no, he was just older than everybody else. I'm looking at you, Kenny Pickett. I told everybody years ago watching that guy, I said he's just 23, or 24 rather. I said he's just 24. He's just older than everybody else. He might have been actually 23, and I was exaggerating, but you get the point. He was old enough to where I'm like, he's just seen enough of this. He's gotten enough reps and has enough talent to deceive y'all into thinking he's a first-round quarterback. He's not. And he's not the only example. He's just the example that I know everybody listening to this show very likely knows. There are other guys who you look at them and you're just like, oh, they're just old. They're just older than everybody else. You know, you're playing against a bunch of freshmen who this NIL is their first time touching real money. You got a wife and kid. Yeah, this is I'm glad that this has happened. I'm glad that we're doing something to kind of reduce that. And as a guy who had a medical red shirt and all that good stuff, I'm glad that we're moving to a space where it's no longer like, oh yeah, if you get hurt a lot or if this happens and that happens, we'll just give you all these exceptions. No, at a certain point in time, enough. Hey, sorry that you had to go the JUCO route. Sorry you were under-recruited, didn't get the opportunity and all that. I get it. Not everybody has the opportunity. I know I was very blessed to play for a football powerhouse in America, right? I know that. I know that I was extremely fortunate to be born at a place and a time where the number one public school in the nation in terms of NFL players produced was where I went. I know that that's nothing but the luck of the draw, because if I had grown up an hour and a half south, I wouldn't have had that availability, right? But the reality is you've got to play the cards that you're dealt, and we shouldn't make it so that in trying to make this thing more egalitarian, we're making up rules that are completely nonsensical.
Yeah, I think the biggest like simple terms takeaway is there will be no more red shirting. And I actually saw Coach Dave Dorn was on On3 earlier today talking about how it's kind of impacted NC State in the past. Like he referenced the MJ Morris situation, and how a lot of these kids, not just MJ Morris, but a lot of these kids with their families and their agents, sometimes they kind of like weaponize the idea of a red shirt. Like they can use it to their benefit to try and extend their stay at a school or try and get a bag and go somewhere else and play for another school. And so much like Coach Dorn, I am also in favor of this rule being passed. I think in addition to kids being the correct collegiate age, which is obviously between the ages of like 18 and 23-ish, it eliminates the tomfoolery that you see like Voldemort's trying to do down at LSU, and, Alabama's trying to bring players back from the G League, the whole 9 yards. It kind of eliminates all that other crap. It kind of gets back to the essence of college sports, in which they are college kids playing college sports. And so there's no more weaponizing red shirts and starting 4 games and having to sit because they want to transfer to somewhere else. It's all a bunch of BS. Now you get 5 years. That's it. What you do with your 5 years is ultimately up to you, up to the athlete. You either make it or you get broke. You break it. That's not a great way to say it, but you understand what I'm saying. So I think in a practical aspect here, this is the correct decision. So I'm glad the NCAA is making a good choice. How about that? Turns out they can actually make intelligent decisions. You got to bully them a little bit, but after a while, it turns out they can actually get something right. So the NCAA is moving forward with the 5-5 rule effective as of this summer. I think I saw July. What month is it anyway? July the 31st is when this effectively comes into fruition. So the 5-5 rule is coming to college sports in my mind, and I believe Kenton is as well. This is a net positive. This is a good thing for the future of college sports. That will do it for us here on Wednesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box, mash that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll catch you right back here tomorrow on Thursday for more. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.